A man retires from farming in the spring. In the autumn, the grain he grew before he retired finally sells, and the money lands in his account. A few months later, Social Security writes to say his benefits are being held back because he earned too much. He did not earn any of it that year. He earned it the year before, standing in a field, and he has the calluses to prove it. I am Ray, and this is Social Security Decoded. Today we are going to take apart one of the most quietly unfair-looking rules in the whole system, and then I am going to show you why it is not actually unfair, and what the one piece of paper is that settles it. Before we start, let me tell you quickly whether this episode is about you, because for a lot of people, it is not. This only matters if you are already receiving retirement benefits and you have not yet reached your full retirement age. That is the only window where the earnings test exists. Once you hit full retirement age, there is no limit on what you can earn, none at all, and everything I am about to describe stops applying to you permanently. So, if you are past full retirement age, you can relax through this one, or better, watch it for whoever in your family is not. Alright, let me lay out the rule that causes the trouble. If you claim benefits before your full retirement age, and you keep earning, Social Security applies what is called the earnings test. For 2026, if you will be under full retirement age for the whole year, the limit is $24,480. That works out to $2,040 a month. Earn above that limit, and Social Security withholds $1 of benefits for every $2 you go over. There is a second, much friendlier version of the limit in the year you actually reach full retirement age. In that year, the limit jumps to $65,160. Only the money you earn before the month you reach full retirement age counts, and the withholding rate softens to $1 for every 3 you go over. And then, from the month you reach full retirement age onward, the whole thing disappears. Now, I want to correct something before we go a step further, because it is the single most common misunderstanding I get letters about. The money that gets withheld is not lost. It is not a fine. It is not a penalty. It is not gone. When you reach full retirement age, Social Security recalculates your monthly benefit to account for the months in which benefits were withheld, and from that point on, your checks are larger, for life. Over a normal retirement, most people get it back. I am not going to pretend that makes it painless. Having your check reduced in a year when you needed it is a real problem, even if the money comes back later. But if somebody tells you the earnings test steals your benefits, they are describing something that does not happen. It delays them. Right. Now to the actual subject of today, which is money that should never have gone into that calculation in the first place. Here is the thing about the earnings test that trips people up. It is a test on what you earn, not on what arrives. Think about the difference for a second. Your bank account only knows about arrivals. The date on the deposit is the date the money showed up. But the work that produced that money might have happened last year, or the year before, or across a decade. And Social Security agrees with you about that. The rule is that wages earned in a year before the year they are paid generally do not count against the earnings test in the year you receive them. Social Security has a name for those. They are called special payments. Let me read you the sorts of things that fall into that category, because the list is broader than most people expect. Bonuses, accumulated vacation pay or unused sick pay, severance pay, back pay, standby pay, sales commissions, and payments out of a retirement plan. Read that list again and think about what an ordinary last year at work actually looks like. Somebody retires in March. In April, the company pays out the vacation they never took. In June, the annual bonus for last year's performance finally lands. If they were in sales, commissions on deals they closed in the autumn keep trickling in for another 2 quarters. None of that is money for work done this year. All of it arrives this year. And for our farmer, it is the clearest case of all. He planted a crop. He tended it. He retired. The crop sold. The work was entirely in the previous year, and the check is in this one. So why do people get caught? Because Social Security does not automatically know the difference, and the paperwork that tells them is easy to skip. What Social Security sees, by default, is a wage figure reported for a calendar year. It does not come with a note saying which months of labor it represents. And when a large number lands in the same year you started collecting benefits, The machinery does the obvious thing with it, so somebody has to tell them. And there is a form for exactly that. It is Form SSA 131, and its full name tells you who fills it in. Employer Report of Special Wage Payments. Your employer completes it. It identifies the payment, and it says, in effect, this money was for work performed in a prior year, not for work in the year it was paid. Two practical things about that form, and please write these down. First, the best time to get it done is before you leave. On your way out, while somebody in payroll still knows your name and still has your file open, ask them to complete Form SSA 131 for any payment that is going to arrive after your last day. It takes them a few minutes. Chasing that same form from a company you left 18 months ago is a completely different experience, and I have heard from plenty of people who tried. Second, if you are self-employed, there is no employer to fill anything in. You are the employer. So the burden falls on you to be able to explain to Social Security that the income belongs to work you did in a previous year, and to have something to show for it. Invoices with dates on them, a contract signed before you retired, records of when the crop was planted, ordinary paperwork kept in order, which is exactly what the farmer in our story had, because farmers keep excellent records. Let me take 3 of those payment types one at a time, because the way each one arrives is different, and the confusion is different too. Start with unused vacation and sick time. This is the most common one, and it is also the one that surprises people the most, because the payout can be large. Somebody who never took their leave for 4 or 5 years can walk out with a payment worth a couple of months of salary, and every hour of it was earned at a desk in years gone by. It is textbook special payment, and it is the easiest kind to document because payroll records exactly when each hour was accrued. Next, the bonus. The tricky thing about bonuses is the calendar. Most companies pay a bonus in the first quarter for the previous year's performance. So a person who retires in January can receive, in March, a payment explicitly tied to work they did the year before. If you look only at the deposit date, it looks like income earned in retirement. If you look at what the bonus is actually for, it obviously is not. Third, commissions, and this one is genuinely messier. A salesperson may close a deal in October and be paid when the customer pays, which could be 4 months later after they have retired. Was that earned in October or in February? For the earnings test, what matters is when the work was performed, not when the customer settled up. But you can see why this is the category where Social Security is most likely to want to see the contract and the dates, and where the self-employed have the most explaining to do. The thread running through all 3 is the same. The date on the deposit is a fact about the bank. It is not a fact about the work. Now let me give you the special rule for the first year, because it solves a different version of the same problem, and people mix the two up. Picture somebody who retires in July. From January through June, they worked and earned a good salary. Their income for the whole year is going to be well above the limit. Under the plain annual rule, that would knock down the benefits they receive for the second half of the year, even though from July onward, they are genuinely retired and earning nothing. That would be a silly outcome, and Social Security has a rule to prevent it. It applies to 1 year only, usually the first year you receive benefits. Under that rule, you get a full benefit for any whole month in which you are considered retired, regardless of what your total for the year was. And what counts as being considered retired for a month? Earning no more than the monthly figure, which for 2026 is that $2,040 I mentioned. So the first year gets looked at month by month rather than as one annual lump. After that, it goes back to the annual test. Notice that these are 2 different fixes for 2 different situations, and you can need both. The monthly rule handles the salary you earned in the first half of your retirement year. The special payment rule handles the bonus for last year's work that shows up in December. One is about when in the year you earned it. The other is about which year you earned it in. Let me put the whole thing together in a story, because that is how you will actually recognize it if it happens to you. Say you retire at 63. You claim your benefits. Your last day is the last Friday in March. In April, a payment arrives for the vacation days you never took, going back 3 years. In May, the company pays the annual bonus, which is for last year's results. In September, one final commission comes through on an account you brought in the previous autumn. None of that is money for work you did after March. Every dollar of it was earned before you retired. If nobody tells Social Security that, all three of those payments look, from the outside, like a person who claimed retirement benefits and then went on earning a large income, and the letter follows. If, on the other hand, payroll filled in a form on your way out the door, all three are recognized for what they are, and none of them counts against the test. The difference between those two outcomes is one page of paper and one conversation you have while you still work there. Now, let me be careful and honest about the limits of what I am telling you, because this is a channel about how the rules actually work rather than how we would like them to. The rule says wages earned in a prior year generally do not count. Generally is doing some work in that sentence. There are payment types where the treatment is not obvious, and there are situations where Social Security will want to see the evidence before agreeing. Deferred compensation in particular has its own handling depending on how the plan is written. So the practical posture is not to assume it will be fine. It is to have the documentation ready, to file the form, and to check your earnings record afterwards. There is one more group I want to speak to directly because they carry the whole burden themselves and nobody warns them. The self-employed. Farmers, contractors, consultants, anybody who ran their own shop. You do not have an employer to fill in a form, so Social Security looks at your situation differently. For self-employment, what generally matters is whether you performed substantial services in the business during the year, not simply what money came in. A person who genuinely stopped working and whose income this year is the tail end of last year's work is in a different position from a person who is still running the business and merely taking money out irregularly. That distinction is fair, and it is also the one you have to be able to demonstrate, which means the same boring advice as always. Keep the dates. When did you plant? When did you deliver? When did you sign? When did you last do the work? If your record shows the work stopped in March and the money arrived in September, you have an argument that fits the rule. If your record is a shoebox, you have a long conversation ahead. And here is a related thing worth knowing. If you are self-employed and you keep doing a little work here and there, Social Security has a rough guide for what counts as substantial, something in the neighborhood of 45 hours a month in the business, or fewer hours if it is a highly skilled operation. That is not a bright line you can lean on, but it tells you the shape of the question. It is about your hours and your involvement, not about the size of the deposit. Which brings me to the last piece, and it is a habit rather than a rule. Check your record. Set up your account on the Social Security website if you have not, and look at what has been reported for the years around your retirement. That is where you would see a special payment sitting in the wrong year. Finding it there, on your own, on a quiet afternoon, is a far better way to find it than by opening a letter that says your benefits are being withheld. And if you do get one of those letters, do not treat it as final. It is a determination based on the information they have. If the information is incomplete, which is exactly what happens when nobody filed the form, then you supply the missing piece and ask them to look again. People do this, and it works. It is not a fight, it is a correction. Let me close by putting the 4 things in order. 1. The earnings test only exists before full retirement age. From the month you reach it, there is no limit, ever again. 2. For 2026, the limit is $24,480 if you are under full retirement age all year, and $1 is withheld for every 2 you go over. In the year you reach full retirement age, the limit is $65,160. And the rate is 1 in 3. 3. Money you earned before you retired but received afterwards is a special payment, and it generally does not count. The list includes bonuses, unused vacation and sick pay, severance, back pay, standby pay, commissions, and retirement plan payments. Form SSA 131 is how your employer tells Social Security that. Ask for it on your way out. 4. Withheld benefits are not lost. At full retirement age, your benefit is recalculated and the checks go up. The farmer in the story I opened with had done nothing wrong and owed nothing back. He had a paperwork problem, not an income problem. Those two things feel identical when the letter arrives, and they are not remotely the same. That is the decoded version. If you are retiring this year and there is a bonus or a payout or a commission coming after your last day, go ask payroll about Form SSA 131 while you still have their attention. It is the cheapest thing you will do all year. I am Ray. Take care of your record, and I will see you in the next one.